Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today, our guest is Joely Colmer from the United Kingdom, upcoming author, autism activist, and she has a great story to share with us. She is also the Point of Light recipient. It's the Point of Light Award given by the Prime Minister in England. So here to tell us more about her story, Miss Joely, thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So let's start out with, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Joely Colmer. I am 23 years old and I live in the seaside town of Bournemouth, which is on the south coast of England. I was diagnosed as being on the autistic spectrum when I was 2 and diagnosed with Asperger syndrome when I was 13. Due to my passion for raising awareness of my disability, I am a multi-award-winning volunteer and an autism activist. Thanks to the massive support from my family, friends and the voluntary sector, I have been enabled to achieve my dreams of helping build an understanding of my disability. Volunteering has enriched my life, changing it for the better. I still volunteer now, but I am mostly concentrating on improving my website, public speaking and publishing my book. Life with a disability on the autistic spectrum can be difficult, but with support I have been shown how I can use my Asperger's quirks to positively help others. As I strive to achieve my full potential as a disabled adult, I continue to create my own fairy tale.
You certainly do. Your website is amazing, and the support you give to others is outstanding. So let's help our audience understand a little bit more about Asperger's syndrome. Can you tell us a bit about Asperger's?
According to the National Autistic Society website, Asperger syndrome is a form of autism, often described as a spectrum disorder because the condition affects people in many different ways and to varying degrees. Asperger's is a lifelong disability that affects how a person makes sense of the world, processes information, and relates to other people. Asperger syndrome is mostly a hidden disability. This means that you can't tell that someone has the condition from their outward appearance.
That's very true. Can you explain what some of the hidden difficulties of Asperger's are? I've read your book that's coming out soon, and it's amazing. You really describe it well. So I'd like you to explain some of the hidden difficulties.
Thank you. I believe there are 4 main difficulties that affect people with Asperger's. The individual and their environment will depict the severity of their symptoms. No 2 people with Asperger's are affected and show symptoms in exactly the same way. The first one is communication. This is all forms of communication: spoken language, reading, understanding body and facial language, and portraying facial and body language. I sometimes find that my problem with communication is like listening to someone talk and every other word they say is in a different language. It's impossible to piece together what they are saying if you are faced with great big gaping holes in your understanding. especially if your disability then means you can't often use reason, problem solving, or logic to work it out. I take things very literally and assume that because I am incapable of lying, other people don't lie too. This means I can get taken advantage of. And often I don't understand when someone is bullying me because I believe them to be telling the truth. Additionally, I estimate it takes me about 5 seconds longer to process every new word in every conversation. This means I find it really hard to respond, if I am able to at all. Sometimes I remain completely silent in a conversation because I am unable to process information quick enough to formulate a suitable response. I also struggle to work out when it is appropriate to speak due to my difficulty with reading social cues. People confuse my silence with shyness, when in reality I am quiet because I am literally unable to process the necessary social protocols to keep up with the conversation. Secondly, there's understanding the world around them. There are many factors to consider, including problem solving, social imagination, processing information, and making connections. People often confuse social imagination with creative imagination. Those on the autistic spectrum tend to have a very vivid imagination and can be quite creative, benefiting greatly from art and music therapy. Social imagination is actually completely different. In essence, it means that our problem-solving skills are terrible. For instance, those on the spectrum are entirely incapable of functioning outside of a routine. Sure, we can complete tasks really well if we are given a supported chance within the safe structure of a routine. In these ways, routines are essential because we have practiced these routines to perfection. Our routine is where we can maximize our ability and enable our disability to reach our full potential. However, if anything in that routine changes, we can't cope. We cannot problem solve to work out how to improve any situation or regain any kind of composure. It doesn't matter how small this change may be. It could be something insignificant like a change of toothpaste or roadworks at making a bus late. Anything small that interrupts the daily patterns can cause chaos for those on the spectrum, often leaving us unable to cope, having meltdowns and feeling really ill. Having a complete lack of social imagination and problem-solving skills impacts drastically on hourly life and is something that most people can take for granted. For example, if someone not on the autistic spectrum was late for school or work because they couldn't find the right bag, they would still be able to function as normal and solve the issue fairly quickly. The issue would hardly affect them or how their day goes. Whereas when faced with this situation, those on the spectrum would also be so flummoxed and completely unable to cope. Even if they found a different bag to use, their abilities in every area would be negatively affected for the rest of the day, causing meltdowns and inability to participate to their usual ability. Another area to explain is making connections, which interlinks with our ability to problem solve. One of the reasons we find these issues so hard is because we simply do not make connections. No matter how simple and obvious something may seem, we won't always realise it. For example, I could be sat inside looking at the rain outside and not realise I need a coat to wear before I go out. It is so normal and obvious to anyone else without my disability that in order to go out, it is necessary to prepare yourself and wear a coat. But for me, it takes a lot of hard work to possibly realise something so obvious. Additionally, I could be in an exam writing my answers on an exam sheet with no space left for my answers. Despite desperately needing more space to write, I would not make the connection that in order to write more, I needed more space, which meant I needed more paper. Such connections come naturally to other people, but due to our vast problems of coping with normal life and poor coping mechanisms, our problem solving and ability to make connections really suffers. It's such a simple concept, but it can sometimes be impossible for us, especially at times of change, overload, meltdowns, or discomfort. Then there's sensory issues. People on the autistic spectrum have a heightened sense of smell, taste, touch, sight, and hearing. Due to this, we notice details that others wouldn't. We often count every crack on the wall or every leaf on the floor, hear things at a higher frequency, and smell things that others can't. Considering I used to have hearing difficulties, I can hear an awful lot now. For instance, a bee buzzing in the garden can sometimes sound like it is cutting my eardrum in half. And in a shopping centre, people just muttering next to me could often sound like they are actually shouting in my ear. At any given moment, my skin feels like it is burning, like tiny little volcanoes erupting beneath my skin and making my skin itch and burn like lava. It's horrible. Simple things like taking a shower can feel like needles are thrashing against my skin, injecting me with pain and discomfort. I have to be surrounded by soft things to calm sensory overloads, and I always walk around with soft and fairy things in my pockets just to help, just in case.
That's a great idea.
I don't have sensitive skin in the sense that I come out in rashes or have to be careful about allergies. It's simply the sensations that my skin can't cope with. I'm allergic to my senses more than anything else. A friend of mine who is a midwife with autism has this remarkable ability to walk in a room and instantly be able to tell when a woman is fully dilated when giving birth. She doesn't need any official tests to be able to come to this conclusion. She can just smell the lady's placenta. Yes, smell it.
Ooh.
I know. I myself have this odd ability to smell illnesses in people, most particularly chest infections and the influenza virus. I used to freak my classmates at school out by saying, "Oh, I hope you feel better soon from your upcoming illness." And my classmates would look at me and be like, "What illness? I'm not ill." And in complete innocence, I would respond saying, "No, you're not ill yet, but I can smell you're going to come down with something."
Oh.
In complete innocence, I didn't realise that there was anything wrong with saying something like that. I just thought I was being honest and therefore would help them. Lastly, there's overloads and meltdowns. Due to the sheer amount of information that people on the autistic spectrum notice and have to cope with, they are often left overloaded with information. When a person becomes overloaded with information and they have to solve a simple problem, like crossing the road, they will be unable to cope with the situation and a meltdown will happen. These meltdowns can manifest themselves in several ways: shouting, screaming, shaking, closing eyes, hitting out, hitting other people, and chronic pain. The meltdown will often be a continual repetitive motion or sound to block out the other senses until they are able to cope again, which usually doesn't happen until the person is removed from the stressful situation or when exhaustion takes over. My meltdowns manifest as nasty seizures multiple times a day, blurred and pixelated vision, and severe chronic pain in every part of my body. The pain is so bad that my entire body will be cramped up, making it impossible to walk or move my hands. Sometimes meltdowns and overloads are so exhausting that I often can't leave my bed for weeks at a time. In fact, I guarantee that after doing this interview, I will be in bed riddled in agony, having a meltdown for the best part of next week.
Oh, I hope not. That's horrible.
These odd behaviours do strike others as being very odd and can strike those with autism apart. They can be used as an excuse to bully. People on the autistic spectrum are subject to bullying because other people witness their weird meltdown behaviour and don't understand what it means. When I was being bullied, life was difficult. I used to feel like a zombie, emotionally numb and living in the depths of despair. The bullying made me feel as if I was merely existing in a post-apocalyptic world, terrified and alone. Let me tell you something. To be alone in a world surrounded by people is a terrible, tragic thing. Due to the effects of bullying and abuse, I started to suffer with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety and depression. Due to my post-traumatic stress disorder, I used to have flashbacks a lot. The terror would rip at my soul, and the traumatic memories would intoxicate my dreams. Depression would corrode at my happiness, and fearful anxiety would crush my lust for life. I have not always been this happy, as the outside world has not always treated me so kindly. Luckily, I found support and shared my problems with those I trusted. I kept a bully diary to show my parents, and suddenly I was able to move on with my life and achieve my dreams and my own little fairy tale, because the bullying just stopped and it never resumed.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that with us, Joely. Your book hits a lot of highlights that you just talked about with sensory and communication. And I actually think it's one of the better books out there that addresses these issues so that parents have a better understanding of what their children are going through. Because I don't think people always look at it from the side of the child, and you were really able to express yourself exceptionally well. But oh, thank you. Let's move on to something more positive. Tell us about the Asperger gifts and quirks.
Okay, so even though every day is an uphill struggle, I adore my disability. It has taught me to be patient, understanding, and accepting of the diverse beauty of the human race. To me, my disability is a gift that has allowed me to achieve my dreams. So, some of the quirks and gifts can include honesty and truth. I am entirely incapable of lying or manipulating the truth. I'm obsessed by the truth. This means that I always have to follow the truth in reality. I won't break any rules or any laws, at least not on purpose. Those on the spectrum often have fascinations known as specific narrow interests. I see this as a gift as well, because whatever fascinates someone with Asperger's will ultimately become their expertise. My fascinations are my disability, the replication of cancer cells, Geminorium, and ancient history. Secondly, there's memory. People with Asperger's have an excellent memory and can often recall detailed information, for example, dates and times, about events they have experienced or have learnt about. This is especially true in relation to their fascination topic. I know of a person who can tell you the day, the day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, of any date in history within seconds of being asked. I'd like to ask you a question. When you were a small child, did you ever lie in the tall blades of grass shaded by a splintered trees of a meadow and gaze upon the curious mechanics of the flowers growing around you? 10 years on, would you be able to accurately describe everything you saw, from the scientific names of the flowers, clouds, and insects, to the number of leaves on the floor? Do you think you'd be able to remember that 10 years on?
No, I'm sure I wouldn't. I'm sure I might remember the moment, but not all of the details that went with it.
So this is something that is a big gift of my disability, because I can remember those sort of details all the time.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's one aspect of my Asperger's that is unique, positive, and empowering. Next, there's routines and behaviours. As people on the autistic spectrum are obsessed with the truth, they thrive within a set routine and doing things correctly. If they are given a specific job or role to complete and are adequately supported, they will become very efficient and accomplished at this job or role.
Great.
They can do anything really well if they've got support. Also, they are very passionate and motivated. This is especially true with fascinations, as the end result is regarded the truth. People with Asperger's are often referred to as walking encyclopedias. My passion for learning, especially about my fascinations, means I remember all sorts of factoids. When my mum had cancer, the only way I could cope was through learning about cancer. I learnt about the replications of cells BRCA1 and BRCA2 that replicate to create a tumour. I spent hours learning about the whole process and how it all worked, and it really helped me through a really difficult and emotional situation. Also, when I was 6, I used to communicate using ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and sign language because I was deaf and could not speak.
Wow.
My passion for learning knows no boundaries, and my motivation to improve myself continues to grow. So the last quirk I'd like to mention is high IQ.
Ooh, okay.
My disability makes me very clever and modest.
Okay.
Generally, those who have Asperger's have an above average IQ. The thing is, we just find it harder to express our knowledge and need much more patience and support than other people to let our gifts shine. When I was at school, I was put in all of the bottom class sets, but this was due to my teacher's lack of understanding of my disability, as I have severe problems with communication. I would often know the answer to questions, but was unable to communicate this. I frequently, as I've already said, I frequently suffered with overloads and meltdowns, resulting in a negative perception of my ability to learn and retain information. As I have grown and learnt more about my disability, I have achieved many things that would have been impossible before with the help of my carer. I can go to nationwide events and give speeches, talking in front of hundreds of people with ease. I bet if you ask my primary school teachers that I would have achieved A levels, A grades, and national awards, they wouldn't have believed it possible.
Well, you're doing great.
My disability may be difficult, but I believe it has far more positives. As for the rest of my life, I will always be honest and incapable of lying because of my obsession with truth, routine, and structure. Asperger's will always enable me to be caring, loyal, passionate, and motivated to help make a difference.
So, Joely, it would be great if everybody had the same honest capability as you did. Can you tell us, how did you come to terms with your disability? You found out so much later than some people find out. Was it a complete shock?
It was a shock, but it was mostly just a massive relief. I believe that the way that my parents told me about my disability made a massive difference in the way I viewed and coped with it. From the very beginning, my parents reassured me that although I was different, I was also unique, very clever, creative, and a kind person. It was a special moment for us all. I was crying, but at the same time, I just felt so relieved, like my entire life just made sense. Everything fell into place. I was suddenly able to understand so many confusing aspects of my life, and I was able to learn and research my disability and make sense of everything. I was also very lucky to have a great support network around me to help me come to terms with it. With time, I grew to love my disability, and my family, voluntary sector, and my friends all enabled me to see past my difficulties and realise that I do have gifts and quirks in my disability too. My family made a big difference.
Absolutely. And how did you find coping with school and a disability? After they realized what your disability was it easier to cope at school?
Um,
Or was it?
Not really. I didn't cope. It was an awful period of my life, but it could have been so much worse. I had a big circle of friends that supported me, and most teachers were very understanding and they tried, but my family were the best support that got me through school. And despite the teachers helping in any way they could, they didn't really have adequate trainings, and it didn't really stop the overloads, meltdowns, and bullying and isolation that I felt. As my mum would say, school is a minefield for those on the spectrum. School is a place of chaos, noise, and shattered concentration. You are expected to learn and develop while you are also being bullied by people, misunderstood by teachers, and in trying to learn in an impossible learning environment. It took years of constant meetings for my parents to finally secure the support that I desperately needed. Even though, like you said, the school knew I had complex learning disabilities, they expected me to learn in the same way, with the same environment, as all of my non-disabled classmates. I try not to blame my teachers because it is not their fault they did not have adequate training to help them understand me or my needs. Luckily, my special educational needs coordinator was wonderful and extremely helpful in fighting for my rights. But actually, it wasn't until I was due to finish secondary school that my teachers fully appreciated the difficulties I had and how in a normal classroom, and just how much I could have thrived in the right environment.
Wow. What did you do when you left school?
When I left school, when I left school, I did not know what to do with myself. I was in a very dark place. I was scared and alone, and a lot of the time I was subject to bullying and abuse. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, which I still battle with every day, just not to the same degree. My family understood my predicaments and realised that the best thing I could do was to start volunteering with other disabled people like me, to give me a hobby and a passion and surround myself with positivity.
Mhm.
And I've never looked back. It's been the best choice I've ever made. My dream has always been to help make positive change happen in my community and individual lives. Due to my disability enabling me with such an understanding and my creative dedication to my projects, since school, I have committed my time and energy to various community projects as a volunteer, including creating disability awareness workshops and public speaking. Um, Beginning my voluntary adventure has to be the best choice I have ever made. Volunteering has changed my life. I started off as a quiet little mouse who had no confidence, and within the month I had loads of new friends. I was designing a magazine and events, and suddenly I felt this marvelous sensation rush through my mind, something that seemed so far-fetched and unimaginable. I just suddenly became happy. My passion for volunteering to raise awareness of my disability continued to grow, becoming my biggest fascination. Within a year, when I was 19, I became a finalist to a local award, and from there my journey spiraled. I was doing speeches across the country, helping run disability workshops, helping the council, featuring in interviews with on BBC Radio 1 and BBC Politics Show, and winning awards. I am now 23, and because of volunteering and support I've received to change my life around, I have won 3 national awards. Number 1, the YMCA England and Telecom Volunteer of the Year Awards. Number 2, as you said earlier, the Prime Minister's Point of Light Award. And number 3, the National Accessible Britain Challenge Awards. With my voluntary group, we designed and implemented a Safe Places scheme for disabled people in my local community, which is why we, as a team, won this award. I also became the regional winner for the V Inspired National Awards for my overall commitment to volunteering and community change.
That is
I would
great. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would like you all to know that none of these amazing things I have achieved within myself, but most importantly within my community, would have been possible without support. The immense support from my family, friends, school and the voluntary sector have taken me places far beyond the most hopeful of dreams. And I'm grateful to say that as a result, I have never been happier. I really do feel like I am living in my own fairy tale.
Absolutely. So tell us about your book, because this is exciting. How long did it take you to write it? It must have been crazy.
It was a rather long time. I've had a lot of support to get it all edited and everything. I'm very lucky. So I've written a non-fiction book about my life with Asperger syndrome called My Fairy Jam Jar. Coincidentally,
Great title.
It's a big coincidence. My analogy that living with Asperger's is like being a little fairy stuck inside a quaint jam jar, witnessing the world from a different angle, powerless to escape and deaf to certain language. Despite all of this, my book mostly describes why I love my fairy jam jar. It seems rather fitting that I'm on the show called Fairy Tale Access.
Absolutely.
My book explores the full spectrum of Asperger's syndrome and how it affects me. While there's technical information that I've included, while it's important, I have included personal stories to illustrate and bring such information to life. I feel the stories are essential as they show a true side to the disability, enabling the reader to understand how it affects in daily life and real situations. Some of the stories are sad, tearful and intriguing, motivating you to learn more. Others are quirky and humorous and will make you laugh out loud.
And it's absolutely true. The book is amazing, and it also helps you to understand other people around you and what they're going through. It may not be exactly the same as you, but you can better understand what people with Asperger's and autism are feeling at different given moments, which is incredibly helpful.
Thank you.
So that's
So
how
glad that
I
helps.
think it will help people. But how do you think the book will enlighten and help others?
I hope the book sparks a fire of positive change by reaching young people on the autistic spectrum. I wish to inspire these young people to find a gift and their own quirks within their disability. I feel like anybody, from family members or professionals who desire to build an understanding of the disability, could benefit from my book. Infusing understanding into our community can only have a positive effect.
Absolutely. So I understand you have some pretty powerful people endorsing your book besides me. No. But these people are amazing. You're going to amazing places, and I think we should share that.
Thank you. I'm very fortunate to have such amazing people helping me in my journey to publish my book. Thankfully, I have 4 wonderful people endorsing my book. Number 1, Professor Simon Baron-Cohen, who is a world-leading expert in autism research at Cambridge University. I am truly honoured to have his endorsement, as his opinions are highly regarded in the autistic community. Secondly, Dave Howard is a BBC television and radio producer. I worked with Dave on a Radio 1 show called Stories from the Spectrum, and he wrote a fantastic personal endorsement. I'm very lucky. Number 3, Lorraine Peterson, OBE, who is a trustee of a charity ambitious about autism. She wrote a wonderful review after reading a copy of my book. And number 4, last but not least, Jeffrey Newman is the founder of the international charity, the Earth Charter. I met Jeffrey at a conference we both spoke at. That was 3 years ago now, and since then he has helped me in numerous ways in the publishing process. I was very lucky as he wrote my first endorsement while my book was still a scrambled mess. So I'm lucky that he still wrote such a lovely endorsement.
Absolutely. And anybody who reads it will really enjoy the story. You did a great job expressing yourself and bringing people into your world and understanding it better.
Thank you.
I totally understand that fairy jam jar now. So tell us a little bit about your website.
Okay. I've designed a website called www.aspergerworld.co.uk, which gives a world of information, inspiration, and guidance about my disability, Asperger syndrome. My website is a very positive, easy to use, and has information about the traits and quirky gifts of the disability, inspirational role models, role model workshops, so the things that I do to help others, like role model workshops, public speaking, autism awareness workshops, and videos about the challenges I face. And these videos do include the interviews I did with the BBC.
Great.
So that's all on my website too. So far, I've reached all corners of the globes with my website, which is pretty shocking and exciting, considering my website is actually really new still. It's only been up and running for about 2 months, and I'm getting about 450 views every day.
I know. It's amazing. It has some great tools. Seriously, and it brings people together.
Thank you.
So, in American autism related organizations are trying to help people get jobs. What advice do you have for employers when they are interviewing candidates on the autism spectrum?
I will give my answer in the format of a list.
Okay.
So, give the autistic candidate plenty of time to think about their answers during interviews. Never interrupt. If they have not answered, it is because they are struggling to establish the answer. Interrupting will block their flow of concentration and make them start their thinking process all over again. Remember that every new word creates more for the candidate to think about, which will take longer for them to respond. If in doubt, be encouraging, smile, and rephrase the question after about 30 seconds. Use specific and literal language. Avoid language that can be portrayed in another manner.
Okay.
Avoid using trick questions. It would not be a fair interview if you asked trick questions during an interview, because someone with Asperger's won't be able to make the connection that you are tricking them. Offer time out for the candidate and make sure it is clear they can access time out during work hours too.
Okay.
Offer 2 weeks work experience as a settling in period, where the candidate simply comes into work to do simplified jobs just to get used to the working day and adjust to the change in their routine. They will be able to learn new skills and get a taster for the real working world without the pressure. Don't rely on body language to portray how or what you are feeling or thinking. They won't understand. A lot of body language is very scary when you don't understand what's happening. So be open. No crossed arms. Don't lean forward on the table. Give them some space. Try to avoid touching. So no handshakes, because people on the spectrum do not like being touched and it can be a very frightening experience. Offer to ring someone to help them get home, or at least inquire that they have a safe means of getting home. Show that you care and want to help. A caring boss will make the work environment much better and the candidate will feel safer with you. Don't be late. The autistic candidate has already changed their routine to be interviewed by you. Don't overload the candidate with too much information. If possible, use visual aids to communicate while you're talking and display handouts for them to see. Easy read and to understand would be preferable. Every time that the employee is due to move on from a point or topic, offer to write down any major points for them, as they may find it hard to process what is being said while also taking notes themselves. If they find it hard to talk verbally and express themselves clearly, just be patient. It is best to give them a lot more time for an interview for an autistic candidate. If you usually set an hour interview, maybe set it to an hour and a half. You don't want to rush the candidate because this would be counterproductive for both of you.
Okay.
Be sure to communicate that although the interview is long, it is only that long to give time for each answer. It does not mean there will be lots and lots of questions, it's just to give them more time. Lastly, send a list of questions with the information they will need so they can best prepare beforehand.
Excellent tips, which will be really helpful because the autistic candidate will probably be the one who is on time every day, correct?
It seems it.
All right. And what tips do you have for employers in making the workplaces more accessible for those with autism or Asperger's syndrome? Because unlike a wheelchair, there are other things that we need to take into consideration.
Yes. People on the autistic spectrum can be considered assets to any employer. It's these positive traits that should be focused on when looking for a suitable job. For example, I am mathematically challenged, so I would never work with money or behind a till. However, if you choose jobs that are related to autistic employees' passions, their specific interests, fascinations, or talents, then you'll be able to build up a new, remarkable employee. People on the autistic spectrum need work experience and extra time to learn new tasks. It may take someone on the autistic spectrum longer to learn their new role, but if the employer is willing to put in the additional time with training, it is likely they will become highly valued members. It is likely they will become highly valued members of the team.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next question, please. Can you tell us why you think it's so important that people learn more about these hidden disabilities? Other than the obvious that we should all be able to get along better, and the more we know, the easier it is to get along. What are some of your insights?
Hidden disabilities are classified as something that affects someone but is not noticeable by looking at them. They are not in a wheelchair, for example. Many people have hidden disabilities or illnesses, for example, anxiety, depression, MS, Asperger's, and it is really important that those people are supported in the correct way so that they can achieve their full potential. If people learnt more about hidden disabilities, they will have a greater understanding of how to help those in need. With the right support, disabled people can become happy and the best version of themselves possible, appreciative of their hidden gifts and quirks. In my eyes, we must all try to be that person who enables other people to shine. Knowledge and learning about hidden disability is vital in creating a fairer society for everyone.
I completely agree. So thank you so much. So tell us, what's next in your fairy tale adventure, Joely?
My fairy tale just seems to be ever growing. I'm hoping my website will allow me to build a career out of helping people. I wish to become a professional public speaker, and this year I hope to speak at TED Talks. Also, as we mentioned, I also hope to publish my book, My Fairy Jam Jar, in the near future. But mostly, I wish to inspire change and acceptance into the hearts of many. I wish to create a swell of understanding, acceptance, and positivity. I hope to achieve this by continuing to volunteer within my community, but also by using my book and my website to reach a greater audience. You never know how alone people are as they struggle with their own personal hardships. I have faced villains within my fairy jam jar. I have faced abuse and bullying and an astounding amount of negativity that threatened to consume me. Thanks to support, I was able to battle these villains away and live life within a fairy tale of happiness. I wish to be the support for other people to allow them to feel more positive about their own hardships and beat their own villains. I want to make a difference in people's lives to enable them to achieve their own personal goals. I wish to leave this interview with this. Life is incredible. To be alive, disabled or not, is an amazing adventure. This is why all life deserves the right to be listened to, understood, accepted, and treated with patience and respect, to aid in making life's adventure as supported for us all as possible. All diversity in people is amazing. We are mammals of intellect, friendship, justice, love, and most importantly, we are mammals of inspiring diversity.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your fairy tale with us. And we're so happy that you've achieved a way to overcome some of the bumps in the road on the way to achieving that happily ever after. And while I'm sure there'll be more, I'm sure you'll overcome all of them. And thank you for sharing so much about yourself. I think it'll help a lot of people in our audience. And we are so excited to get a copy of My Fairy Jam Jar when it comes out. And we wish you the best of luck in every single thing that you do.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's been lovely.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you again. And until next time, keep asking questions. The answers are out there. And this story shows you that you can overcome anything and reach your dreams. We'll see you soon.